Clover may be one of the best known or favorite crops for food plot farmers. I've never been a huge fan of a monoculture of clover, but there are certainly places it works well. Typically, the further north you go, where the summers aren't as hot and there's more rainfall or moisture, way up in the Smoky Mountains, I have some clients there that do a great job of growing clover. But even where clover is great, you're usually using a herbicide to keep weeds at bay and using fertilizer, because any monoculture is not going to be as good for the soil as a diverse mix of 4-H species or plant species. If you ever tour a native prairie or a native grassland, you notice there's a lot of different species growing there. However, in this case, clover was exactly what the doctor ordered. This is a power line right-of-way that just got cleared. Trace and I are having a house built back behind us a ways, and it was new and rough soil, and we had so much rain, it was just wet, wet, wet. Now, just cleared it for a power line, so this is not good for a tractor or a drill. There are big rocks and some stumps and stuff in here, but I wanted to plant it. I didn't just want, and I'm a huge fan of native species, but in this area we tend to get a lot of Sericea lespedeza and multiple rows and stuff like this. I want to make sure I had as many pounds of high quality forage as I could. So the time of year, given it was so wet and more rain in the forecast, Daniel and the guys come out here with the Hooyman broadcasters and spread this clover. I was out of town. They did a great job. Now, it may not look perfect, but we'll show you some close-ups. This area is just about all rock. And again, it was going to be a mix of native species and invasive exotic plants. A lot of them deer don't eat. So this is a tremendous success, given that the only effort we put into this was broadcasting clover from green cover seed. We've got a moultrie up here, and man, we're getting videos of bucks in here all the time just feeding away. This was not planted last winter like a lot of clover. This was planted very late this spring just due to weather conditions. Clover is, of course, a legume, and it's adding a bit of nitrogen to the soil. Now, at this young stage, it's not adding much. It's probably taking most of the nitrogen the plant can produce to just keep itself up. Traditionally, clover is very high in protein, but that always depends on the growing conditions. Apparently, the bucks think it's good because they're certainly feeding here frequently. There's a lot of weeds in here, and if I was going to keep this a clover-only stand, I would have to use a herbicide. Mowing, which is common with a bunch of clover farmers, doesn't keep weeds at bay. It doesn't work in your yard, and it doesn't work in ag. You may get away with a year or two with the weeds not looking too bad, and then they'll choke out your clover stand if you're not using a herbicide, especially grassy weeds. Maybe you got Johnson grass or something like that. You know, for mowing your yard, clearly mowing doesn't kill most perennial grass species. But in this situation, maybe you've had a power line put in recently at your place, or just dozed out a driveway, or whatever happens. You got some really rough land that you just don't have the time or resources to make a permanent food plot. If you're in the spring or fall and there's a lot of rain in the forecast, you can broadcast clover. That was what we had going on here, and that was my prescription. This is an annual clover. It's Balansia, primarily Balansia, and it's probably going to make seed. Balansia is a pretty prolific seed producer. We may get another crop coming on next year. We'll keep you posted. So weeds, i.e. weeds, are going to take this over. Eventually, the clover will be outcompeted by native species. But maybe we can keep the bad native species at bay by using this clover and spot spraying some herbicide, and keep a clover stand in here that's reseeding for 2 or 3 years, and customize this by using our techniques to be very high quality native species. Clover is a great crop, but I really prefer it in a blend. It's one of 6 or 7 or 8 species I'll plant at one time, and I find with blends I suppress a lot more weeds and produce more tons of high quality forage per acre.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, PH Outdoors, Black Widow Bows, Moultrie Mobile, Steel, Fleet Outdoor Apparel, Morel Targets, Fourth Arrow, Soil Pro Outdoors, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Burris Optics, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
I wanted to share this spot for one other reason. It is wicked rocky. And I hear people say all the time, oh man, my dirt's not like I see in those TV shows in Iowa or whatever. I just can't grow food plots. Plants will grow almost anywhere. I've had seed germinate literally in the back of my pickup when I was planting and spilled a little seed and it got wet. It may not be as productive as deep, rich Iowa soil, but it's probably a lot better than the closed canopy forest where you're working. So don't be hesitant to plant either using a drill or a broadcaster where it's too rough for a drill, and establish food plots even on very rough, rocky, shallow soils. I hope this will encourage you to plant a food plot. We're going into the wrong time of year, late July, late June, July, August tend to be hot and dry throughout much of the whitetails range. You're probably gearing up, and the ideal planting time for most of us in fall plots is 45 to 60 days before the first average frost date. On any given year, that frost could be early or late. So what I like to do is just go online and look at the first frost date average for the last 5 years. That'll show you the trends you're in. Don't go back 80 years because certainly the climate has changed. But last 5 years, what's your first frost date? And then back up 45 to 60 days before that, and then plant when there's rain in the forecast. I like a really good chance, like 80% or more, of at least a half-inch rain. Those seeds, although they're dormant, are living organisms, and they can desiccate or dry out and die. If you throw them out, especially in August, it's hot, there's no moisture, you're probably wasting some really good energy and seeds. The big thing here is experimenting, and I've been blessed. We've been incorporated. GrowingDeer has been incorporated 35 years this June. Of course, we were working before we got incorporated, so we've had a lot of failures, and we've learned from those failures, and that's why we can pass these successes along to you, because oftentimes out in the field, you learn from failures or you improve by trying different techniques. This is something we've learned years ago, and we're still using it, and it's working well. But you don't want to fail in life. And there's a great instruction book. It's God's Word. We commonly call it the Bible. And we can use that to limit the failures in our life and have a better life. I'm not talking killing the biggest deer or making the most money. I'm talking about setting yourself up with less misery and more joy in your life. And you get that by knowing the Creator, seeking His will, and applying it to your life daily. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.